Good evening. Whatever we are studying, there should be preview, actual teaching, and review. That means from tomorrow onwards, you should first read what you already got and see how much meaning you can make out of it. That is called preview. Then I'll try to explain it. Then after that, you should again review and see how much you got, whether everything is clear or not. If it's not clear, then you can again ask questions and things like that. So that is the process with this particular study and teaching, and also in the case of your study of other subjects, in order to make sure that the subject that you have studied, the Dharma teaching that you have listened, in order to make sure that it stays in your mind, you should make effort to preview and review, not just listening to the teaching. And the process of listening to the teaching is threefold. In the Buddhist process of studying the Buddha teaching, there are threefold: hearing, thinking, meditation. Right? Hearing, thinking, meditation. All these three are important. Thösam gomsum, thövasam gomba. As one of the Kadamba masters says, when I have hearing, I have thinking and meditation. When I have thinking, I have hearing and meditation. When I have meditation, I have hearing and thinking. All these things should go together. So hearing or listening means listening to the teacher or reading the book. Now let me give you an example, very good example that I read in a text, why these three are important. If you are thirsty, very, very thirsty, looking for water, and you have no idea where the water is available, then you need to hear from somebody where water is available, right? Is that clear? Because you have no idea and you are dying. So therefore, I'm really very thirsty. Can you tell me where water is available? So then that fellow says, okay, I know where water is available. It is available 2 kilometers from here in the northern direction, western direction, whatever. So that's important. Hearing the teaching is important, just like hearing where water is available when you are thirsty is important, right? But is that enough? Hearing is important because at least now you know where water is available. But is that enough? Not enough. So therefore, just listening to the teaching, hearing the teaching is not enough. So in the case of somebody who is thirsty, then having heard where water is available was a good thing, but he has to walk 2 kilometers, take a car or bicycle or walk. You have to cover that 2 kilometers distance. So like that, having heard the teaching or having read the text, then you should contemplate, think properly, analyze, think on the meaning that you have heard to make sure that you got the meaning right, to make sure that it is beneficial or not, right? So you need to do that by yourself. Nobody can do that thinking for you. Just like walking for 2 kilometers. So hearing about where water is available is important, but that's not enough. So you have to walk 2 kilometers That was a big progress. Now you have, let us say, you walk 2 kilometers and you have reached near the water. You are able to see water. But no stupid fellow will say that I was thirsty, I heard about where water is available, I walked 2 kilometers, I reached near the water, enough for me, thank you. Nobody will say that, right? Because you have still not drunk water. So similarly, hearing the teaching is important. Then thinking about the teaching is very, very important. You got the conviction about the validity and usefulness of this teaching. But still, the teaching has not become a part of your life. You have not integrated it to your life. So you may become a good scholar, good for talking, good for teaching, but not necessarily a good practitioner, because there is a gap between what you have learned and who you are. So therefore it is important to digest the teaching, to make it part of your life. Until and unless you do that, the teaching will not bring any transformation in your life. So therefore, with this example, it's not enough that you've reached near the water. Now what you need to do is you use your hand, use a cup or any other pot, drink the water. Then your thirst will be quenched. Until to that point, you are just making effort, but you have not actually drunk the water. So your thirst will not be quenched, right? So similarly, meditation is important. Hearing, thinking, meditation. Meditation now means, there are so many different types of meditation. But meditation basically means making your mind habituated with positive ways of life. Making your mind habituated with virtuous qualities. Many people have misconception of meditation. And especially in today's world, meditation is very famous. Meditation is hitting the headlines of Newsweek or New York Times, and everybody is talking about meditation. It has become a 5-star kind of practice, right? But honestly speaking, there are not many people who understand the meaning of meditation. The reason that one should meditate is you are controlled by your mind. Are you with me? You are controlled by your mind, not so much by your body. You are controlled by your mind. That is tolerable. It's okay that you are controlled by mind. But when we say you are controlled by your mind, what kind of mind? A mind which is predominantly destructive, negative, stupid, foolish, short-sighted, superficial, pleasure-seeking, and whatnot. So imagine if you are ruled by a dictator, if the country is ruled by a dictator, you'll get all the problems. Similarly, imagine if you are ruled by a mind which, if not completely negative, but predominantly negative, short-sighted. So if your life is ruled by such a negative emotion, you can't expect to have reliable, long-lasting happiness, which was our objective to actualize. Right? So when we talk about doing Dharma practice, Dharma comes from the Sanskrit word dharan karna. Dharan kare to dharma. That means to adopt something. To do such a practice that you will not fall into a lower state. Zimba. Zimba sedu. Thap kyo sachik da duk sachik lama sangma jushin zinkin. Practice of Dharma means a way of life through which it will help you not to fall into a negative state of existence. Like, for example, if you kill somebody, you will be regarded as a murderer. you will be looked down by the rest of the members of the society. You fall into a low state, negative state. So it's through the practice of Dharma that you do not fall into those negative state of existence. Right? So that is called Dharma. So therefore, you are controlled by your mind. Your mind, the mind that is controlling you is predominantly negative. So therefore, now when we talk about doing Dharma practice, we are basically talking about undergoing an election. Because you realize that my boss is not good. My boss means your mind, which is predominantly negative, short-sighted, stupid, foolish. Therefore, you don't like that. You want to overthrow that negative ruler. There are two parties predominantly fighting, trying to control you. Right now, the negative party of the negative emotions almost got a landslide majority. So you are ruled by these negative emotions, anger, jealousy, hatred, and whatnot. They come like this. To get angry doesn't need much. You just, with slight use of different words, slight way of treatment, you just flare out. You get angry. But positive practices like patience, compassion, it's not coming so quickly like that. So this clearly shows in which area you are more habituated, right? So therefore, Dharma practice for me is really like doing an election. Realizing that you are ruled by a negative boss and you don't want that. You want peace, long-lasting peace and happiness, which we all agreed. So therefore, now you want to replace those negative emotions with the positive emotions. Right now, the two bosses of all the negative emotions, the two army generals or kings or president or prime minister, what you want to call it, the two foremost negative emotions are ruling our mind. They have already entered into the headquarters of our mind. The two negative bosses are ignorance and self-cherishing attitude. Denzintang rang jinzi. Denzintang rang jinzi. Ignorance and self-cherishing attitude. Now I will speak slowly. If you want to write down. Make sure you understand what I'm saying. Right now, the bosses of all the negative emotions, they've already captured our headquarters, the capital city. They're already ruled. So the two negative bosses are self-cherishing attitude and ignorance. Now listen carefully, very carefully. Ignorance means not just lack of knowledge, but misconception of reality. Is that clear? Misconception of reality. The reality is such that everything is interdependent, interconnected. There is nothing whatsoever that has objective, absolute, inherent, independent existence. Is that clear? The reality is that everything is interdependent, interconnected. There is nothing that has nothing whatsoever. Forest, tree, house, man, women, God, whatever. There's nothing that has independent existence. Everything has a dependent existence. Right? But our ordinary, uninformed, stupid, ignorant mind, we tend to see things as having inherent independent existence. That's how we get into problem. especially when you like something, a car or a man or a woman or whatever. If you like, if you fancy something, so wow, so handsome, wow, so beautiful, existing from its own side. I must have this car, I must have this laptop or whatever. I must have it. So you, at that point, you tend to see that object as having inherent independent existence. You don't see any fault there. That is against the truth, that is against the reality, because reality, in ordinary samsaric life, there's nothing that has no fault. So when you see any object as 100% beautiful from its own side, then you get obsessed with it. When you get obsessed with it, what is the problem? When you get obsessed with it, you get stuck there. When you get stuck there, how can you get freedom? What you wanted was long-lasting peace and happiness, which means you wanted complete freedom. Happiness and peace will be there. That's why nirvana means liberation, freedom. You see? Samsara means bondage. We are dependent on this, dependent on that. We are stuck here, stuck there, you see. So you are not free. So when you get obsessed with something, with attachment, with lust, or whatever, then you get stuck there. Look at the flies, house flies. They are obsessed with the smell of the dirt. Then go there, their feet get stuck there, and the hundreds and thousands they die. You see that in places where it is very dirty. So we are not better there. We get stuck in so many things. You get stuck there, you won't get freedom. Similarly, when you don't like somebody, like your enemy, then you don't only see that enemy as somebody negative, but you tend to see that enemy as 100% horrible, 100% negative, impossible to have any negotiation, impossible to have any dialogue, outright negative. The only thing you wish is eliminate, kill, because it's impossible to talk with that person, have dialogue with that person, because you are seeing that person as embodiment of everything that is bad, but which is again not true, because even the so-called enemy has his own friends, his admirers, who say that he's a very good man. You see? So there are good aspects, bad aspects. Everything is component of many things. One side, very bad. One side, very good, you see. Relative. Right? So when you see that enemy as 100% negative, absolutely negative, negativeness is there from its own side, then the only thing is shoot him, kill him, eliminate him. No room for improvement. So what I'm saying is when I talk about ignorance, I'm talking about a mind which sees things as having inherent independent existence. As I said, ignorance is not just lack of knowledge, but misconception of reality. Reality is that everything is interdependent, interconnected, but your stupid mind is seeing things as having inherent independent existence. So that is the source of all the problems. Because if it exists from its own side, then there is nothing you can do. Bad, 100% bad, good, 100% good, there's nothing you can do. Right? So therefore, what I'm trying to say basically is, things exist. Yorva karina. Things exist, right? Things exist. If things exist, they can exist only in two ways. Either they exist dependently or they exist independently. These are only two possibilities. Clear? Either they should exist dependently or independently. There cannot be a third possibility. Because dependent existence, independent existence, they are mutually exclusive. There cannot be a third possibility. Only two choices. So now think of everything that you can think about. What is their mode of existence? Dependent existence or independent existence? Huh? Are you getting what I'm saying? Think about everything that exists and tell me whether they exist dependently or independently. Huh? Huh? I can't hear. You're so shy and so. Huh? What? Put some energy. Dependently. इसको लॉक किया जाए dependently. Yeah? Really, these are very. I'm talking about very important things. So now we have all agreed things exist, and they exist by depending on many factors, causes, conditions, the name, the designation, the part, the whole. It depends on many things. There is nothing that has independent existence. So if your mind sees things as having independent existence, then that is called ignorance. That will then bring many problems. That's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama is saying that if somebody asks you, what is Buddhist philosophy? He says Buddhist philosophy is interdependent origination. If somebody asks you what is Buddhist way of life, then Buddhist way of life is non-violence. Why non-violence? Because everything is interdependent, interconnected, You will only end up creating problem if you use violence and other destructive activities to those on which you are dependent. Like, for example, if you destroy the environment, you are destroying yourself. If you harm other people, you will also suffer. Because of this interdependent origination, the reality of interdependent origination, therefore, you must make a very harmonious, nice connection, a connection through compassion, connection through love or compassion. So that ignorance, which sees things as having inherent independent existence, that has occupied your headquarters. That is there right now. That's one of your main enemy to fight with. Is that very tough? Are you getting what I'm saying? A little bit hazy or what? So the one number out of the two enemies, the bosses of all the negative emotions. The first is called ignorance. Ignorance means seeing things, a mind which sees things as having independent existence. Second boss is called self-cherishing attitude. Rang Jinji, self-cherishing attitude. Not to have self-cherishing attitude does not mean that you should not take care of yourself. Of course you should take care of yourself. But self-cherishing attitude means thinking just oneself alone and completely ignoring the well-being of others. Here, when I use the word self-cherishing attitude, I'm not just talking about like taking care of yourself, but I'm talking about a negative emotion where you think just yourself and completely neglect and ignore the well-being of others. So, in Shantideva's Bodhicharya avatar, after giving a detailed explanation about the importance of bodhicitta and disadvantages of self-cherishing attitude, then he makes a summary by saying, Mangdushe the Chishigu. Chipa rangi tuyanze da tuwa shinji tuyanze ba dingi jini kebar tuyos. Then he makes this beautiful summary by saying, there's no need for me to elaborate this point. You should just see the difference between the Buddha and the ordinary person. The ordinary person has been for life after life practicing self-cherishing attitude, thinking only about oneself. So where are they today? And then Buddha for countless lives taking the mind, practicing the mind that cherishes the well-being of others, practicing bodhicitta. So where is Buddha today? If you see these two differences, ordinary person and Buddha, then you will see the result of these two minds, self-cherishing attitude and bodhicitta. So these two very negative sworn enemies are resting, not only have they captured our mind, but they are resting peacefully, drinking tea and coffee and relaxing. Because nobody is challenging. Because we have this very funny tendency of seeing, even the negative emotions. If it is your negative emotion, then it should be good. It should be justified. We have this tendency. So therefore, you take it as a natural thing, And many scientists also, they say, they hardly talk about negative emotion. They say emotion means emotion, There's nothing negative, positive. All emotions are useful. Of course, we cannot so lightly ignore their, claim or their finding. We need to think, right? But still, in Buddhism, these are identified as negative, destructive emotions. So, as a Buddhist practitioner, you need to understand few things. Whether you study mind training, whether you study Lamrim, or whatever Buddhist text you study, there are few core elements. So the core element is that the main enemies that you should fight and defeat and eradicate, banish from your head is ignorance, self-cherishing attitude. Now the counter force against these two sworn enemies, they are wisdom understanding emptiness and bodhicitta. Wisdom understanding emptiness means wisdom that sees the nature of ultimate reality, sees the way things are. So that can very effectively deal with this ignorance, which misconceivs the reality, which sees things as having independent existence. Whereas the wisdom of emptiness sees things as having as dependent existence. So that correct view, correct wisdom can eliminate ignorance. Clear? Clear? Now here, emptiness, the very famous word. Those of you who attend my talk, this is a reminder, I have explained this many times. Those who have not, then raise your ear and listen carefully. Emptiness is not equal to nothingness. We already agreed few things, right? Remember that again. Things exist, but there are only two modes of existence: dependent existence, independent existence. And which one did you choose? Dependent existence. Therefore, there is no independent existence. So this non-existence of independent existence is called emptiness. Empty means none, like an empty pot. So emptiness therefore means empty of independent existence. Clear? Empty of independent existence, meaning there is no independent existence. Because things exist, they exist dependently. Therefore, there is no independent existence. So emptiness means empty of independent existence. So the wisdom understanding emptiness sees the way things are, sees things as having dependent existence. Now, if you are somebody who has a very profound understanding of interconnectedness, and we should be able to understand this because we are today living in a computer age where we talk about networking, interfacing. It's so interesting. All these words that we are using, globalization, you see. So connected. Like if you look at your body, the whole thing, in the Western, unfortunately, I'm a little bit critical of some of the systems. In the Western system of medicine, although I don't know much, I should not be making this presumptuous remark, but it looks like they don't take that whole, when somebody is sick, physically sick, they don't take into account the whole body. Most of the time, in the name of specialization, if your right hand has a problem, they'll just deal with that. Liver has a problem, replace it, take it out, that part. But in the Tibetan Buddhist way of thinking, and Tibetan medicine, which is based on the Buddhist way of thinking, always takes into consideration the whole thing. Because in one way or the other, how good your eyesight is dependent on the kidney, liver. How good is your nose is dependent on the, exactly. So they are heavily dependent upon each other. Then look at the breathing, it connects. Then the signal sent by the brain goes through the whole body. So you need to take into consideration the whole thing, how much they are connected. So therefore, you take into consideration the well-being of the whole thing. In the case of humanity also, the humanity as a whole, the community as a whole, your body as a whole. You see, the holistic viewpoint, as we say. It's very, very important. So that holistic viewpoint comes because there is this network of relationships. Interconnectivity is there because of that. Right? Right? And in fact, the interconnectivity is so strong, if you use a big, powerful microscope, you won't believe your eyes. With our ordinary eye, it has a limit to see things. For example, if you look at the hand, as it is, it looks okay. But if you use a very powerful microscope, you will see mountains and valleys, even here. You will be horrified. It almost looks like it's just bunch of bubbling energies, hardly connected to each other. It's just moving like this. And Tibetan Buddhist masters or Buddha, they have realized this long time back through their special clairvoyance or special realization. Zugna uva devada. Body is like a bursting form. Long time back. Now we can prove this through scientific findings. So therefore, the antidote or counterforce against ignorance is wisdom, understanding, emptiness. Then the counterforce against self-cherishing attitude is bodhicitta. Because bodhicitta means a mind wishing to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Self-cherishing attitude thinks just oneself, completely ignores others. So that mind that cherishes the well-being of all other sentient beings is the counterforce against that self-cherishing attitude. So your core practice, now you should make effort. Many of you may already have a lot of knowledge, but otherwise you should make that effort to understand these core teachings. Bodhicitta, wisdom, understanding, emptiness. These are the two real wings by which you can soar and fly into the state of enlightenment. The others are kind of contributing factors for these two important practices. Because your main enemy is ignorance, self-cherishing. Taha kosunga, da ngosim sunga, da suimba de ngosi sunga, da de surisana, dinzin dang, ranchinzi. Di kapte jagin di, tunye dawa hirab dang, chanchu sim. So dinde chene do this ngebe che goruda. Dimena any ko nye ne consulting समझ में आ गया जी हाँ समझ में आ गया सब कुछ समझ में आ गया जी हाँ सब कुछ समझ में आ गया क्या समझा सर कुछ नहीं समझा तिंदे डूम जी और गुमा और तिंदे वो छाई नहीं गया because it's not just Buddhist practice but in all your walks of life your study make sure that you are able to understand what you are talking about what you are hearing what you are studying understand it thoroughly through specialization, whatever. Then it will stay in your mind. Then it will move you. Because here what we are trying to do is not just getting information. We are living in a world today where we highly talk about information. And we call ourselves proudly age. We live in the age of information. But much of the information that we are getting today is junk information. I'm not exaggerating. You do have junk mails, right? And the Buddha had clearly said, don't make your mind a garbage bin. This beautiful head is not a garbage bin. If you put everything that is useless, you are discrediting yourself. Then you are not taking care of yourself. If you make your beautiful brain and mind as a dustbin, garbage bin. Right? So therefore what we need is genuine knowledge and more importantly, wisdom. A knowledge and wisdom that transforms your life, that changes your life, that transmutes your life. If you are thirsty, you need to drink water, right? Right? But is it necessary that you drink the whole ocean? Kakum na chutung garawa. Ina jasu sama tungo yuji marwa. Chubo yongzo matung chang chisam tungbe komba sel silavre. Kakum suye ki chuch tungurwa. Similarly, when you listen to the teaching, you should get some message, some idea from there, which you are able to retain in your mind, which you are able to use, by which you get transformed, changed. For that, you need to make effort. That's why I said hearing is good, thinking is good, but important thing is meditation, from where we are talking all this. So meditation means making your mind habituated with the good things, virtuous practices. Because until now, you are controlled by your mind. Your mind is predominantly controlled by negative emotions. Therefore, you are suffering. You don't want to suffer. You don't want to encounter a problem. So therefore, now you have taken this decision and the step to not to submit to the dictates of the negative emotions anymore. Say no, say goodbye to negative emotions. When we are talking about Buddhist practice, we are saying that you stupid jealousy, you stupid hatred, the day when you mistreated me, the day when you destroyed my family, is a day gone. Because it was a day when I didn't have knowledge. Now I know who you are, you horrible monster, negative emotion. Now I know who you are. So I have no room for you now anymore. When you did not have access to Buddhism, then you thought these emotions are natural, you know. Anger is coming, jealousy is coming, hatred is coming. It's natural, you know. Most of the people in the world, they think it's natural. It's your emotion. So open your door and window 24 hours. Come and let them, these negative emotions come and go as they like. That's why you are suffering. That's why you are not getting the needed peace and happiness. Now you know what is the purpose of these negative emotions. The negative emotions have no other purpose except destroying us. In the case of ordinary enemy, they may be very negative, but they have some purpose. Like in the case of Chinese, they need not the Tibetans, but they need the land of Tibet. So there is some purpose. They need the uranium, they need the gold that was lying there in Tibet. But with the negative emotions, there's no other purpose except to destroy you. Right? So therefore you need to be a little bit bold, a little bit strong. And you need to start as much as possible thinking about these things and then practice it. meditate on it, get habituated with that. Then you can see the result. We are not just talking, it will, we are not talking, this will benefit you to get liberated, this will benefit you to become Buddha. These are big talking, really, very big talking. For us, I'm not saying they're not impossible, but almost impossible. But the practical thing is that if we sincerely practice this, even from tomorrow, day after tomorrow, you can see the benefit yourself. In terms of your physical health, there will be difference. In terms of your mental health, there will be difference. You see, the mind is really the precursor of whatever activities we do. Right? So with this kind of understanding, now, the only thing when you talk about doing practice, Buddhist practice, is simply fighting with these negative emotions and making friendship with positive emotions. Now next time when you hear loving kindness and compassion and patience and wisdom and so forth, then you should, as and when you hear them, say, sorry, excuse me, sorry. Now I realize that you guys are so important, so compassionate, so nice. I never realized this before, so please come, have a cup of tea. Invite them. Make friendship with them. Exactly like the way we make friendship with other human brothers and sisters. When the more time you spend with somebody, the more you see the ugly side of that person, naturally you will distance yourself from that person. Because they are cheating. They are exploiting you. Right? They are deceiving you. So similarly, we should make friendship with these positive emotions, distance yourself from the negative emotions. Right? Okay, read. So yesterday the first verse that we read was really talking about how to meditate on impermanence. Prabha? Because the more you think about, and yesterday we discussed, impermanence does not just mean death and things. Impermanence means change. Impermanent means whether it's a positive experience or negative experience, they arise by depending on causes and conditions. So if you want peace, happiness, love, compassion, bodhicitta and so forth, they have their causes. Cultivate those causes and you will get all the good products. If you don't want suffering, then find out their causes, trace the causes, deal with them, remove them, then you can lessen sufferings, lessen problems. That's primarily the meaning of impermanence. So the whole process of stages of the path or Lamrim can be explained with this understanding of impermanence. Right? So yesterday the first verse we read said that since you are controlled by the Lord of the Death, who controls all the three realms of the world. So because, if you don't realize that and still sleep peacefully, as if you are already enlightened, as if you are already free from suffering, then it's very, very improper. For example, if you suddenly get a news saying that your enemy has already started coming, then you will immediately think about how to fight the enemy or run away from them or hide yourself somewhere. You need to make the preparation. So similarly, on the very first moment or first day when we are born to die. The Lord of Death is prepared or life in such a way. So each and every moment, each and every second we are moving towards their destination. And when we will die, nobody knows. It can be tomorrow, it can be day after tomorrow. So there's nothing to get scared about that. Death itself is not a big issue. The issue is if you die having done many destructive, negative things, then it is bad because you have to experience all those negative consequences. Otherwise, death itself is just like changing clothes. You don't get scared by changing clothes. In fact, it will be better probably in the case of an old person to die and then born as a young boy, young girl like that. Okay? Now next, it talks about meditation on impermanence. It explains this in a little bit much more elaborate way. First, you should remember that you yourself is subject to death. And then it is saying that since you yourself is not liberated from the fear of death, and instead, if you keep on lamenting the death of other people, then that's again very, very improper. So therefore, do not get obsessed with bad activities, and you should make effort in the path leading to liberation. Now, with regard to the meditation or recollection on one's own death, there are two processes of meditation. Meditation on the grosser impermanence and meditation on the subtler impermanence. Now, with meditation on the grosser impermanence, he explains this under 5 points. The first point, he says, because we have this very interesting way of seeing things as if being alive is the counterforce against death. Being alive is the antidote against death. So I'm being alive, so why should I talk about death? Death will not come because I'm alive. So being alive is itself not a counterforce against death. Right? So this is explained by saying that being alive is not the factor that would do away with death. So therefore, don't be so sure of yourself that you will not die because you are alive right now. Because we have this, that is called grasping of permanence. Because why should I die right now? I have no physical illness, I'm mentally sound, I'm getting good food, I have a nice place to sleep. So because of that we think, I'm not going to die like that. That's our understanding. So for this, as an answer to this, verse number 2 says, those who are born, or you are born only to die, and whose nature is to be driven by the force of others. So therefore you look like you're in the act of dying, and you don't look like as if you are living. So those people who have this insight, they see us moving into the process of dying, not in the process of living. Like if I'm driving a flock of sheep to be slaughtered in the slaughterhouse, and this flock of sheep is on their way to the slaughterhouse, are they in the process of dying or in the process of living? Exactly like that. As I explained earlier, each year is consumed by month, month is consumed by day, day is consumed by hour, hour is consumed by minute, minute is consumed by moment. So it's moving so fast towards that destination, that death. So therefore you appear to be dying and not, you look like moving towards the death. You don't look like living. The reason is the very cause by which you are born, the birth itself is the cause for death. Meaning that you are produced, you are brought in this world in such a way that you are subject to death. So in a way, your death, your destruction is inherent in you. It's in you. Amazing. And then plus we, of course, by going to the wrong place, by eating the wrong food, particularly these days, rainy seasons, you have to be very careful what you eat, especially in the restaurants. Because the food they prepare in the restaurant, they are unable to sell it quickly, so they leave it open, and then all this kind of, bacteria or, insects, whatever, they come and sit there, and many of these tiny insects or microbes we don't see. They are there, you eat it, you get sick. So you have to be very careful. And I have noticed this, it is during the monsoon that Delhi hospital or medical center is full of sick people. You see, so it's better. Precaution is better than cure. Most of us don't take that precaution, be it death or be it physical illness, we don't take the precaution. Only when we are sick, then we go to the hospital. It's too late. So please don't get sick during the monsoon. All right? So practice means practicing from small things like that with mindfulness. Taking care of yourself means being mindful of what you eat, where you go, and everything, right? Then the next third verse says that yes, and many of us have this thinking that yes, I'm going to die, but I'm not going to die so easily. I'm going to live quite long, then I will die, no problem, you see. So death will come much, much later. Before that I have a long life to live, so therefore I want to enjoy. And many of you have heard that story that I told earlier, that there was a human being who made friendship with a ghost, and that ghost had some kind of precognition, clairvoyance. So the human friend, he said, I'm a little bit scared of death, but before that I want to have fun. So since you have precognition, you have clairvoyance, so please, when I'm about to die, then tell me a little bit in advance. So until to that point, I want to enjoy life. Then the ghost said, okay, fine. So after some time, the ghost came and said, my dear friend, one of the members of the family, your neighbor, died last night. He said, oh, really? So sad. But he carried on his life as usual. Then after a while, the ghost again came and said, my dear friend, one of the family members of your neighbor died last night. Then he said, oh, so sad, so sad. But he continued the so-called life of enjoyment, which is basically getting engrossed with the sensual pleasures. Then after a while, the ghost came and said, my dear friend, your turn to go. He said, how come I told you to tell me a little bit in advance? Then the ghost said, I've never seen a stupid person like you. I told you 2 times. The neighbor down died, the member of the neighbor down died, up died. You should have that common sense that your turn is coming very soon. This is exactly what is happening with us. All of us, I am 100% sure, many of you are quite young, but still I'm 100% sure, you can count the names of so many people you have seen dying or heard dying, close friends, relatives. But still you keep on thinking, it's not my turn. I'm going to live long. You see. So what am I driving at by saying this? I'm not trying to unnecessarily frighten you. What I'm saying is be realistic, because if you develop that understanding, you will be completely transformed, believe me. If you think seriously about this imminence of death, your life will be completely different. Your attachment for unnecessary things will completely decrease. Your friendship with others will get enhanced. I had given you the example of the old lady yesterday, you see. Completely. Because if you look at these different religions that's there in the world, how did these different religions come into being? one of the main factors is death. People don't know how to deal with death, so they talk about religion and so many other things. The other animals, cows, birds, they don't have a religion because they are not cognizant of the death. Right? So it's only human beings who have these fears, like sickness. I mean, the sickness is there with the cows, but they are not so aware of these happenings. Whereas we are very alert and aware, so therefore, in order to deal with these things, we talk about death and so forth. So if you want to really transform your life, then thinking about this, travel, death, can completely change your life. Not just thinking about God, not just thinking about Buddha. It may be useful, but if you really think about the real matter, real issue, the real issue people don't want to talk. They talk about like things, these, good things, They don't want to talk about the real issue. Real issue is death. How are you going to deal with these things? As I said yesterday, with death people don't want to hear, so therefore even the cemetery, they build it far away from the place, their city, they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to see it, you see. Right? So, if you think about this imminence of death, for example, death is coming tomorrow. What is it that you are going to take now? How would you live your life? What is more sensible in your life? All these questions will come to you. It will completely change your life. Then you will start doing the most useful thing and stop, hopefully, many of these useless things in which we get sidetracked all the time. Right? Then you will do the real business. So there is a lot of purpose for this. So the verse number 3 is saying that if you are among those saying that I don't fear death because still there is a lot of time, it will come much, much later. So in this way, if you are seeing the past as brief, now let us say if you are a young man or young woman of say 25 years, you already used 25 years. 25 years is a long year, but our tendency is, because past we tend to see it as very brief, it's gone. Meaning, the past 25, 30, 50, whatever, you tend to see it brief, it's gone. You tend to see it brief because you're thinking, future is long, I'm going to live. I'm going to do this project, that project. Even in the case of a very elderly person, say 90 years old, if you ask that person, are you going to die soon? He will say, yes, I'm going to die soon. Are you going to die tomorrow? Tomorrow, maybe not. You see? So that is called grasping of permanence. Even an old man in a very fragile situation, fragile health, thinks that I'm not going to die today. And then tomorrow comes, tomorrow is again, then today, today. You see. So with this kind of attitude, if you think about living, you make another plan. If you think about going, you make another plan, you see. So that's important. Very, very important. Because much of the wrongdoings that we do in the society is because it never occurs to us that I'm going to die. Right? Does it make sense? You see the past is brief, yet see the future differently. That means future, long. I have to do this, I have to do that, I'm going to live, I'm going to get married, and this, that, and so forth. Differently. To think both equal or unequal is clearly like a cry of fear. So it says, if you So in this way, if you see the past and the future as equal, or past is short, future long, if you see in that way, this is of course not objectively true, but if you're seeing in this way, you're seeing this way, and you are saying this because out of fear, just to console yourself. Yeah, I'm going to live, Even though you have some idea that this may not be true, but you will say, yeah, I'm going to live. You don't want to say the truth. To think both past and future equal or unequal, meaning the past is short, future is long, is clearly like a cry of fear. It's like the person who is walking in a thick forest, and he was left behind, he's alone, he has lost the path, and he's really very scared in that forest because he lost the path, and there may be wild animals. But he pretends that he doesn't have that fear. So he starts singing, you see. But full of fear, So that's the meaning here. It's clearly like a cry of fear. Very often we pretend and do things which is not what we actually feel, what we experience. Then verse number 4, because nobody wants to die, everybody wants to live. Why, I don't know. Everybody wants to live, nobody wants to die. So therefore, you try to embolden yourself or try to cheat yourself, coming up with different versions. Because I'm healthy, I'm going to live, and things like that. Now in this verse number 4, he is saying, since death is common to others too, if you say since death is common to everybody, why should I fear? If you are saying like that, then is that jealousy that causes you suffering? If others die, you are also dying, then you have no fear. If others are not dying, you are alone dying, then if you have fear, if you are saying that, then this suffering that you have is out of jealousy. That doesn't solve the problem. Since death is common to others too, if you say, therefore I have no fear, then does jealousy cause suffering? When only one is harmed and not others, then you get suffering. But when everybody is harmed, if you say no problem, that is again stupid. Because whether others are suffering or you are suffering alone, you are getting that suffering, you are getting that problem, right? But we do have that kind of feeling of jealousy in our mind. Therefore we do think like that. So everybody is suffering, so a little bit better. If you are suffering alone, then you feel miserable. The one example that I normally give is if suddenly a very rich person comes in, and when he sees us listening to the teaching, then he says, this is wonderful, there's so many young people listening to the teaching, I am very happy. So he gives like $200 to each of you, but not to me. Then I feel a little bit uneasy, why this fellow has given $200 to all of them, not me. If nobody came and nobody gave anything to all of us, I'm fine. But if that fellow has given you the money, not me, I feel uneasy. So that shows there is some kind of jealousy is there with us. If you, instead of jealousy, if you really have the love and affection, then you should be happy. You don't worry about you if you don't get it. It's okay. The others got it. Wonderful. You will feel happy. But we don't do that. So because of jealousy, you think like that, but which is wrong. Okay, just one verse, then I'll stop. Verse number 5. Then again you say, I'm not fear, I don't have fear of death. Because especially in today's modern world, there's so many medical facilities, right? So many medical facilities. So therefore, sickness can be cured. And aging can also be treated to some extent. You can be rejuvenated. Therefore, I have no fear. If you say things like that. And then he says, this is again stupid because number one, it is not true to say that all sicknesses can be cured. There are some sicknesses can be cured temporarily, not forever. There are some which you cannot cure. Right? And aging also, there's not much really, honestly speaking, there's not much treatment with aging. Because aging, the only good thing with aging is it comes slowly, unnoticingly. It's like environmental degradation. Right from the first moment of the birth, aging started. Aging sana, gave us na, nasu hendu gyurvas. Aging doesn't mean that you should have like white hair and wrinkles on the forehead, no. Every change of the moment is called aging. So aging has started right from the first moment of the birth. The only good thing with aging is it comes so slowly, so unnoticingly. If there's onslaught of aging overnight, you go to bed tonight, tomorrow you wake up and very old women with disheveled hair, white hair, or wrinkles on the face, you will die of heart attack. Gepa kiji kali wongbe tax. Tuchigla yungna senta mese senta umarasu. Heart attack. So that way it is good, but that way it is bad also because it's coming so unnoticingly. So therefore, we never think about aging. Probably you start thinking about aging or thinking that you are now getting old only when you cross 60 or 70 like that. Then it's too late. That's why the real wisdom we start getting only when we are quite old. In many cases, too late. So that's why it's good that so many of you are listening to such things. You must get that wisdom when you are young. Then you can solve many of the life's riddles and problems. So even if we accept that there is some cure for sickness, some cure for aging, and therefore even if you say that you have no fear, but yet there is no cure for the last ordeal. There is death. As we discussed yesterday, there is not even a single person who never died. Thus obviously you fear it. And aging itself is cause for death. Birth itself is cause for death. Sickness itself is cause for death. So there is no escape. The great runners, athletes, they cannot run away from death. Right? You cannot just dive down into the depth of the ocean and hide there. Or you cannot just go off and hide yourself amidst strong mountains. No. There is a story at the time of the Buddha, there was some fighting going on, and somebody came and took shelter with the Buddha. And the Buddha, it said the Buddha used his robe to cover and protect that person. But when that fight was over, almost everybody got killed, and Buddha lifted that robe, this fellow was also dead. When the time comes, you cannot escape it. So therefore, death is number one imminent. Then also because of wrong food, wrong behavior, wrong conduct, going to the wrong place, we quicken the process of the death. So with this realization of impermanence of our psychophysical aggregate, it also tells us that you really take good care of yourself, because your psychophysical aggregate is very fragile. So be very careful about what you eat, what you think, with whom you go, and so forth. Many people die unnecessarily because they go to the wrong place, they eat the wrong food. Just few days back, some tourists, they were all drunk, 4 of them, and driving a vehicle, and they jumped somewhere, all of them died. So this is not a timely death. This is because of wrong behavior, wrong ways of life, right? So therefore, take good care, especially during the monsoon. Thank you.